Hi, peace lovers, and welcome back. I'm Avis Kalfsbeck, and this is the Pieces Here podcast. We are currently in a fiction series here on the podcast titled Experiment Zero of the Peace Experiments. This is a 13-episode series following the reports of Kitty O'Compost, a small-town journalist with a sharp wit and a truth-telling goat named Marzipan. In this story, Kitty untangles the mystery of a global peace protocol through the lens of a local pothole, proving that the big questions of the world are usually hidden in the small things we walk over every day. It's a journey about the commons, the power of young people, and the quiet maintenance of peace. If you found us in the middle of this series, feel free to pop back to episode 184 to start the story from the beginning. In this chapter, Kitty comes home. The hearings are over, the noise has thinned, and something small but real has shifted. A door is opened, not wide, not safely, but just enough. Here's Chapter 12, New Files, the Pothole and the Protocol. By the time I returned to Midway, the air had the day's stillness that settles over a place right after it's been mentioned somewhere important. Not celebrated exactly, just noticed by something larger, like a constellation leaning closer for a better look. I let myself into my house, set my bag by the door, and performed my end-of-day census of the self. Boots, dust from 3 cities clinging to the soles, a denim shirt rolled to the elbows, creased from leaning on too many tables that weren't built for elbows. Notebook, straining at the binding, pen out of ink but refusing to retire, and Marzipan, who threw herself against my shins in a greeting so forceful it doubled as a performance review. Her hooves clicked across the floor as she followed me to my desk, where the stack of hearing documents lay like a pile of congealed intentions. At the very top was the newly issued directive, Youth-Led Pilot Programs for Conflict Reduction Research Authorization, limited duration, 1 academic year scope, to be determined. It was not a victory parade. It was not even good policy, but it was a door wedged open, faintly squeaking, impossible to unhear once it had moved. Garrett had texted me an hour earlier. We got permission. They're calling it a controlled hypothesis exploration. See you soon. Bring your notebook. Permission, hypothesis exploration. Only institutions could turn common sense into a rare mineral. I sat down, cracked open my notebook, and started drafting the story. Today, the panel authorized the first youth-led peace experiments in the region, not because they believed in peace, because they could no longer explain why they were afraid of it. Marzipan hopped onto her favorite stool beside the desk and stared at me with a look that said, in no uncertain terms, "Be precise." She lifted one hoof and scratched at the air, the soft, steady rhythm of approval mixed with warning. "All right," I told her, "no embellishing the bureaucrats, no villainizing them either. They're stuck in a pothole of their own design." Scratch, approval. I kept writing. The hearing did not change the world, but it changed the question the world is allowed to ask. Scratch, scratch, agreement. And that question did not come from experts, nor from seasoned witnesses, nor from national advisors. One sharp stomp, correction, underline the truth. "Right," I said, fixing the line. The question came from the students of Osprey Point, kids who have decided to test whether peace is as fragile as adults claim or as sturdy as they suspect. My hand slowed. The weight of those young people fell onto the page with unexpected gravity. They weren't symbols. They weren't rhetorical devices. They were actual kids who just yesterday had looked so small under the gaze of stone gargoyles. Now they were asking the world to let them try something it had avoided for generations. I leaned back in my chair. "Addie," I whispered, "they're really going to do it." A hush filled the room. Not silence exactly, but a kind of settling. the sort of quiet that happens when a compost pile shifts under its own heat. It felt like the fresh air I'd found when that Capitol window cracked had finally followed me home. I closed my notebook and opened my laptop to file the piece. The cursor blinked like a steady heartbeat. Upload, submit, done. A new folder sat on the corner of my desk, a manila tab labeled by habit rather than plan. The Peace Experiments, Notes. I hesitated, then slid the hearing directive inside. Next went my scribbled interview fragments, then my map of global potholes, the phrase that had started this whole sideways tumble. Marzipan shifted on her stool. She reached forward, gently pressed her hoof to the edge of the folder, and closed it with ceremony normally reserved for quilts and treaties. "That's it?" I asked her. She blinked, slow, satisfied, and let out a soft breath through her nose, a kind of goat benediction. I looked around my little home office. Dusk stretched across the window. Outside doors, the pothole waited faithfully in the road, a reminder that every story begins with what people trip over while heading somewhere else. I opened a blank page, not to write, just to see it waiting. The kids would start soon, their experiments, their logic, their stubborn demand to test every myth made of fear. The cursor blinked in the dimming room, steady and patient. At my feet, Marzipan shifted and settled, curling her body around my ankles until she looked like a hook of a living question mark. You've been listening to Experiment 0 of the Peace Experiments. I hope you'll join us for the next episode. My books and peace projects can be found at aviskolfsbeck.com, including the Pater the Water Dog Saves the Planet Best Friend Ecofiction series. For those who want to dive deeper into the peace themes we covered in 2025, I've created a 2025 recap ebook. It includes everything from Kitty Ocampos' satire debut to the deep history of the Great Disarmament. It's complimentary and available now at aviskolfsbeck.com/2025. I'm excited to announce that our next series begins just after Experiment 0 ends. Our daily Peace School opens its doors. There are 8 departments, and each begins with a set of 14 foundation classes, our 101 level courses. This isn't about credentials, it's about learning how to see more clearly and ask better peace questions in short daily episodes. For now, just know the doors open soon, starting with the Department of Universal Understars in episode 198. Thank you again. Listen for the peace.